turning to this. Democrats have been getting blowback for jumping on a plane and flying to El Salvador, not to our southern border, to El Salvador, to visit Kilmar Albrego Garcia. You've heard his name a lot. He's a deported illegal immigrant, and the White House claims he's a gang member. Well, Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen even took the time to talk with him over drinks. We have a picture there. The left's latest political pilgrimage, though, was to Louisiana. So in this case, you had 5 Democrats. They go down to Louisiana. They met with anti-Israel activists in ICE detention centers. These are the 2 activists they met with, Mahmoud Khalil and Rumeza Ozturk. They're facing deportation from the Trump administration, who's arguing that they are a threat to national security. Both have expressed anti-Israel views as Israel fights a war against Hamas, but it seems the left has their back.
I've just left my visit with Mahmoud Khalil at the Central Louisiana ICE processing facility in Jenna, Louisiana. Khalil's story is one of pain, perseverance, and strength, but it should never happen.
Well, that was Senator Ed Markey. You'd think he's a member of Khalil's defense team there, but no, he's a Democratic senator. Then there's squad member Ayanna Pressley, who claims that those students were just practicing diversity.
If people are tempted to marginalize and other who this could happen to, again, in Donald Trump's America, this could be you. This could be you for suffering a miscarriage. This could be you for practicing diversity, equity, and inclusion. This could be you for reading a banned book.
You know, Kaylee, these are students who are not U.S. citizens, and the remarkable amount of concern there is for students who are part of these anti-Israel protests, some cases authored papers to that effect. Their concern for them over U.S. citizens like Rachel Morin and Laken Riley is startling. I've never seen Ayanna Pressley take up the mantle of Laken Riley.
It's like they're all in a competition to outclown each other at this point. It just keeps getting more and more absurd. And it's not just that these cases aren't a political fight worth having, which they are obviously not. The problem also is that Democrats especially are not able to have this fight. They have zero credibility when it comes to the rule of law and due process. On the Abrego Garcia case, are we seriously supposed to believe that all of these Democrats suddenly care about due process, but they didn't when January 6ers were charged with terrorism charges for simply being within the vicinity of the United States Capitol? And where is the supposed concern now from Democrats about the sanctuary cities and states that are violating due process and violating the rule of law actively? I don't see them talking about any of those districts at all. So they can't have that fight because they have no leg to stand on. And another reason why I don't think that this is a fight that's worth even going there for them is because, you know, we talk a lot about how Democrats are constantly on the 20% side of 80-20 issues, this being one of them. The reason why that is because I think that they've legitimately forgotten how to function as a normal political party. You get the sense that Democrats walk into Washington and just sort of assumed that they'd be in power permanently. And I don't necessarily blame them for that. They had control of the media. They had control of higher education. They had control of the bureaucracy, of the culture. But that has changed. And what has also changed is that Democrats now have to actually engage with voters who disagree with them. And they can't seem to figure out that voters disagree with them on illegal immigration. So they keep putting themselves in this corner, and it defies all sense. It defies all reason, but they don't know how to do anything else.
They don't, and they checked it on these facilities, and here's what they found. The facilities were clean but chilly. That's according to Rep. Troy Carter, who said detainees complained of cold temperatures at night, making it difficult to sleep. Carter said the facilities appeared to have been cleaned prior to their visit, and that conditions appeared to be fine while they visited. They checked on these conditions for these individuals who aren't U.S. citizens. And I would love to ask Ed Markey, Ayanna Pressley, did you ever check on William Goodman? He was imprisoned. He was a peaceful pro-life activist. The government said, we're not accusing you of any sort of violence, but he was given a 3-year sentence. Here's what he said the conditions were like. This is a U.S. citizen. Watch.
I've just left my visit with...
I'm hoping you could tell me about the conditions because, you know, to be quite honest, I was shocked when I walked in and we had a conversation off camera about no toilet paper, some of the other supplies that were available. Could you share with me the condition of the prison?
Yeah, where I was in Bravo unit, it was actually a unit that had been condemned, and not all of our showers worked. There was backups in the plumbing with sewage coming out. Sometimes the heat wasn't working. Guys were wearing full jackets, parkas, hats, and gloves in the unit, not able to sleep. You know, it was appalling. We went over 2 weeks without toilet paper. And some of the guys mentioned that some of the men who were there with gender dysphoria wearing dresses, they could get mascara, lipstick, and perfume, but we couldn't even get toilet paper or basic needs. So there was a lot of neglect.
Senator Markey, Lisa, never checked on William Goodman.
Well, I guess they deem pro-life activists as, worser than these illegal aliens and people who don't like our country. But, what comes to mind to me is, show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. And I think what we've learned throughout the past 4 years and what we're seeing now is that the way that these parties view immigration tells us their values, right? And you look at who the Biden administration allowed to come in this country. They embrace the lawlessness that Kayleigh spoke of. And really what we've seen since Ferguson as well, of Democrats really embracing lawlessness. Also, just people who hold anti-American values, anti-Israel values as well, which is obviously what the Biden administration embraced, particularly with its coziness with Iran. And then you look at the Trump administration, America first, protecting the hardworking men and women, the patriotic Americans who love this country. They're just trying to get through their day. They're trying to pay their taxes. That's who he is protecting. So we've learned the values of both parties through the immigration process. And then obviously the illegal immigration part stood out over the past 4 years with Biden. But also now we're digging into the legal immigration issues and the vetting problems that we've seen of who we've allowed in this country, both with green cards and as well as visas. I mean, the federal government told us that the Khalil lied. He lied to the government about some of his past employment. And I don't really think that's on him. I think that's on us for not doing a better job reviewing who we're allowing into this country and who we're giving student visas and green cards to.
Douglas, the DNC stands for the Democratic National Committee. But I suggested to Jesse last night, maybe they should be defending non-citizens. They wouldn't have to change their acronym. They could remain the DNC, but it would be more apropos and more accurate description of what the Democrat Party is up to these days.
It's pretty amazing, I have to say. This case of Khalil, you mentioned he's anti-Israel. That's not the only thing with him. He's not being put in an ICE facility because of this. He was part of a group that for months and months caused civil disorder on an American campus in an American city. There were janitors and others harmed. His group calls for the, quote, complete destruction of Western civilization. I would think if you're a visitor to a country on a green card or a visa, you might not try to overthrow the country you're in or say you want to destroy the civilization. You might just hold back a bit. But the other thing is, and I really need to say this because this book I've just published on democracies and death cults is about the last 18 months of war, the aftermath of October the 7th. I'll tell you one person that none of these Democrats have wanted to go and see. Khalil is meant to be going for due process at some point in New Jersey. No Democrat to date that I know of has said that they want to go and visit Edan Alexander, a 21-year-old who was born in New Jersey and has spent the last 18 months actually in the cold, actually kidnapped, actually in captivity in Gaza, held by Hamas. He's still there. He's still there. And every hour and every minute I hear people talking about Mahmoud Khalil taking advantage of this country's generosity. I wish I'd have heard any of these people talk about Edan Alexander or the other American and Israeli hostages